Welcome to the Pivot Experience podcast, where leadership transformation isn't just a concept, it's a journey we take together. This is where real leaders share real stories about the moments that changed everything. In each episode, we dive deep into the pivotal experiences that transformed good leaders into great ones. Whether you're a seasoned executive, a rising star in your organization, or someone ready to take that next big step in your leadership journey, you're in the right place. Get ready to learn, grow, and maybe even find that spark that ignites your own leadership pivot. This is the Pivot Experience podcast, where your next breakthrough starts here.
Hey guys, what's up? It's your friend, Pastor John R. Adolph from the Antioch Church in Beaumont, Texas. Hey, listen, do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe this channel so you can continue to pivot into your next.
What's up and what's happening, TPE family? Welcome back to part 2 of our Lead Better featuring LaChelle Cress. LaChelle is a Chick-fil-A operator, and if you guys had a chance to tune into part 1, she dropped a lot of great nuggets of her journey in LDP and becoming an operator. Now we're going to continue to extend that conversation. Check it out.
No, excellent thought. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ivana. So you might have answered this a little bit already, but I want to ask the question again. What is something that you wish you would have known before you got into the operator role that you know now? Like you said, you're year 5.
That's a good question.
What is something that
I wish I would have known? I don't know. This maybe goes a totally different route a little bit, but I think that definitely me. I was 17 when I first I felt a pretty clear calling from the Lord to be an operator, and I pretty much had my blinders on to that from 17 to 25, 24. And I think that I thought something was going to change when I had my hand on that bell, ringing it. I think I was like, yeah, this is gonna fulfill me, or this is gonna, I made it, or whatever that may be. I made it. And I think that you learn pretty quickly that doesn't change. It doesn't change you. It's literally it's a job. It's a job title. It's a job that we have. I have a job just like y'all have jobs. And I think that you had this unrealistic thought that operators were I don't know, this big deal. And I think that gets shot down pretty quickly of nope, normal person, nope, same problems that you had yesterday, it doesn't fix anything. Even more income, I think that there's perks to being an operator. You have more income, that's great. Doesn't fix things. Doesn't fix anything. So I think there's a lot of empty promises in the operator. There's a lot of empty promises and just this people really hyping up what an operator is going to be or what it will be. I think sometimes that's why I even probably drill people more now when they ask me when they say they want to be an operator. I'm probably more harsh towards them now that I am an operator rather than on my journey up, because I think that I was oh, it's sunshine and rainbows and whatever, and then you get to be an operator and you're it's just a job. Why do you want this job? Pick a different job if you don't, there's lots of jobs out there. And not saying that you can't become an operator, but it's just that sometimes I think people have unrealistic expectations of what it's going to be.
Well, and I think that kind of harkens us back to the interview process. That's why it's so thorough. That's why it's so in depth, because I think a lot of people, and this is just not applicable to the Chick-fil-A opportunity of being an operator. They think if I get the pay increase, if I get the promotion, if I get this car, if I get these things that make me feel better externally, that it's going to change something on the inside. And that's not totally true. This has to be a passion of yours. You can't. I think a lot of people outside looking in, they see, maybe what the operator drives or their quote unquote work-life balance or life balance that some operators get a chance to have. Those things really don't come until later, after you've established long book of business in one location. And so I think you're absolutely correct. This is a build, and you've got to find the right people, and you got to build up the right people to be able to partner with you in that journey and making it happen. And I want to pause right here really quickly and just encourage you guys who are listening to put your questions in the chat. I see a few questions in the chat already, and we'll address those toward the end. But if you have any comments, anything that jumps off the page to you, do not be afraid to use that chat function, and we'll address those questions towards the end here. But no, really good stuff so far, LaChelle. Thank you so much for being transparent as you have been. And so now we want to fast forward into current operations. This bucket has morphed a little bit because you gave us some news at the top of this that you're transitioning out of one restaurant and going into a new opportunity. And so, maybe you can speak into these questions. And so how has your leadership evolved since becoming first becoming an operator? Like, how had you, I know you've already touched on it a little bit. You've already highlighted some of that a little bit, but more concisely, how do you feel that evolution has happened?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is going from kind of that like more, maybe not micromanaging is the wrong word, but like very hands-on operator to then it's allowed my team to have more space. I think at the very beginning, when there are people that aren't necessarily my people yet, it's hard to be like, yeah, go be free, do whatever you want to do. You kind of have to develop that and build that. The problem that I had at the beginning is I had a leader who really wanted to be free, but I didn't trust that leader to be free. And I think that's a big part of my leadership that's changed over time, is that you really have to figure out how to trust people. And I have a leader who currently works for me, who's worked for me for 5 years, this 5 years that broke my trust at about the 2.5 year mark. So it's been about 2.5 years. But full on broke my trust. We almost terminated him, ended up giving him a second chance. And now he's my favorite leader. Like, I probably shouldn't say that because my other leaders can watch this and they know like that I love him, that he broke our trust and we still love him. I love my other leaders as well. So not saying that he's, whatever, but I think that's something that learning how to trust people. And then I think trust is the biggest thing that has changed over my leadership journey. And I think I'm still figuring out. I think that's the fair answer, is I'm still figuring that one out.
Would you care to, or if you didn't, would you mind, I guess, elaborating on trust and what does that look like for you when you're hiring people, looking to promote people? Like, how do you determine and evaluate trust? And this is just a little extra for the group.
Great question.
You brought it up, but I just, I just my personal reasons. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think a little bit is giving responsibility and seeing what happens with the responsibility that you give, and giving small responsibility at first. Give her small responsibility. They do a good job at that. Okay, you get more. One of my favorite just like biblical stories is kind of stories of the five talents that, one guy gets 5 talents, he comes back, he's got 5 more. And the other guy gets 2 talents, he comes back, he's got 2 more. The other guy gets 1, he buries his and he's like, I don't want anybody to, take it. And I think that's how I look at the trust even in our business, is like, hey, if I give you 5 talents, what are you doing with those 5 talents that I gave you? And are you going to bring me back 5 more? And for the people who bring me back 5 more, those are the ones who get more responsibility and they get more trust. I think that's just pretty much it.
No, that's so good. I love that story too. We kind of lean on that every now and then when in terms of, hey, we gave you responsibility. What did you do with it? How did you grow it? How did you add value to it? No, I love that. And so next question.
I think, LaChelle, that's an area you've really grown into. LaChelle is, so backstory on LaChelle, my husband actually hired LaChelle at 16. And they actually said she was like a miniature Giovanna when she was 16 and I was like 20 something. Anyways, so no LaChelle since she was 16. But I think that like you're super talented. And so how do you, I think when you are super talented and you know that you can do it better than most people in your restaurant. When I say do it better, like a leadership development plan or things like that. How do you really get to that? Like, hey, this person could probably do it 80% as good as I could and be able to give them that. And then say, okay, give a lot of clarity in it. Like, you can't just say, hey, go make this better. Like, when do you want to, like, when's the next check-in? What are things like that? I think you've done a really good job of that over the last, I would say, probably several years. Like, you figured out how to do that. And so I think when, especially people on this call, like, if you're on this call, obviously you want to become an operator, you want to go into LDP, or, you know, you want a future with Chick-fil-A, is you've got to learn that, like, you have to learn to trust people. And when trust is broken, what do they say to do? Well, you just have to trust them again, or you have to let them go. Like, there's only two options at the end of the day with trust. You either say, okay, they broke my trust, which we're human and we all do it. We all break people's trust at some point, right? And so you either have to say, okay, I'm willing to trust them again, or this relationship isn't going to work, and move on. So I think it's an area that you've really grown in over the last, I would say, 3 to 5 years as an operator, is just like learning that, yeah, you're probably going to be able to do it better. But do you want to do it by yourself the rest of your life? That's another question. Like, I think some people think they're like, well, I could do it better, so I want to continue to do it. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we want some sort of freedom, and you can't do everything yourself. We're open 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. And so I just think that's an area that you've really grown in over the last couple of years.
Thank you.
Awesome. So the next thing I want to ask, and so I think I want to preface this next question. You mentioned that you relocated. I'm assuming that maybe the relocation, the scenery is better, the commute is better, or the opportunity is better, right? Yeah, the opportunity is better. I think that's the bigger question, well, the bigger pursuit. And so with that being said, this question I have for you now is, how do you balance business growth and maintaining culture? If you were of the mindset of, hey, I need these results in order to be able to go after this opportunity, how did you balance that pursuit with maintaining a healthy store culture?
I think that, I mean, I know earlier I said results over relationship. I think a healthy store culture is a result. Like, I think that sometimes we just think of results as ones and zeros, but if you have a healthy store culture, your ones and zeros are generally better. I would probably gander to bet. So I think that, like, even recently, I mean, one, a little different than maybe most, is that we've been extremely honest with 99.9% of our team. I mean, there's probably a few team members that, you know, are super part-time that didn't know what we were pursuing. But majority of our team knew that we were pursuing relocation, like, and that we were very honest and open with that. And we have store values. I think everybody does. One of ours is growth. I think growth is probably majority in operators. Store values, if it's not something that you're passionate about, it might not be a good gig for you. And it's Chick-fil-A. Like, you want to grow. You want to grow in sales. You want to grow in excellence. You want to grow in your team. You want to just get opportunities to grow. And I think we had seen, honestly, the biggest thing that I had seen in the future was, I was like, I'm about to cap out in how much I can pay my high level leaders. And so the biggest way for me to be able to pay them more and keep them with me longer is for me to get a busier restaurant. And also the store that I was at, or am at for the next 5 days, is one of the lower volume freestanders in Houston. It's known as a starting store. So I think that it was just natural to kind of look for what's next. But a big thing is, I mean, even for us, is that, like, a big thing for me is I wanted a store that I could bring a good bit of my team with me. And so the store is only 20 minutes away from my current store. And it's like a triangle, 15 minutes each way. So I think that was a big thing. And then even like so I only have 45 team members currently, and 20 are coming with me. So have 50% of my team joining me at this new venture is something that's really exciting for me, and kind of shows a cultural success of people wanting to be able to come and do something else at a different location.
Yeah, I definitely would echo that. I tell people, we've got some folks that were in town that worked for a different location, and they moved 2 hours away. I said, it had to be something about that operator, that atmosphere they created, that made you want to pack up everything and move on. Actually, we have two situations like that, where we have people that we're working with in our business where they've relocated from near us to abroad, and they brought people with them. And so it kind of speaks to the culture that you've created. the last question that we'll have, and then we'll go into our Q&A, is what type of legacy do you want to leave as an operator?
Yeah, this is one that I kind of messed with Giovanna a little bit whenever I read the question, because there's just this thing in Chick-fil-A that people always like to talk about legacy, and I'm not one that really likes to talk about legacy as much. Not that I don't like to talk about it. I just think from my faith perspective, like my only legacy that I care about leaving is Jesus. You know, like that's it. There's nothing else. There's nothing that Chick-fil-A is gonna, you know, fill that tank for. And I think that a lot of times in the legacy tank, it pretty much has to be a purpose that's greater than Chick-fil-A. It has to be something that's more than selling chicken sandwiches. And I think for me, that's really what it is that this is the venue that I can share my faith. This is the venue that I can lead people in their next step of whatever that is in their faith. This is the venue that I can provide for my family to be able to give my girls, you know, a great, you know, life here, but not even just financially, but in the faith perspective as well. So I think that's my biggest thing. There's nothing too crazy on that one.
No, and so I guess I don't know if this, what I'm about to say, is encouragement or challenge, but I'll just say it. So I think
you can challenge me on it. It's fine.
It's not. No, it's not really that. But I think Dan Cathy said it best, that, you know, he used to talk about the mall stores, and I know malls are far and few in between, but he would say that, you know, on Sundays when you walk in the mall and you see that Chick-fil-A light off, that's when he feels like our light shines the brightest, right? And when we were and I don't know if you were around when we were rolling out second mile. Well, second mile service has always been around, but there was this resurgence when they talked about the recipe for service. And I remember watching one of the seminars, next now, but one of the talks that Dan Cathy was talking about, when he was talking about when we do second mile service, it's our opportunity to minister to people who may not have had contact with people of faith or with people who are thinking in the way that you're thinking about. And when you think about it from a biblical standpoint, in Genesis, it says that we're going to have to work. You know, initially, by design, we were supposed to have dominion. We were supposed to just take over everything. We messed up, and God said, hey, you're going to have to work to get the things that you want. And so I think we're all tasked with that burden. And then you electing to look at your burden and pursue something that illustrates a brighter light than yourself, I think speaks volumes of you. And so whether you are looking at the legacy component or not, I think you're leaving a huge legacy by deciding to partner with a brand that prioritizes that level of thinking. And so I think you already know that. And I know you're kind of like shying away from the question, but I think just inadvertently by you saying that this is what I want to do for the better part of my life speaks volumes about the legacy that you maybe not want to pronounce that you're leaving, but that you're leaving. You know, I think sometimes when we think about that term, it seems egotistical, or it seems self-centered. But I think that just being a part of the brand, whether it's being an operator or being a manager or being just a team member, you're partnering with a company that I think that prioritizes that piece of it. So again, I didn't think that was challenged. I just think that was just additional commentary to your answer. And so now it's time for us to transition into Q&A. Neff or Ashley? I think we're gonna go with Neff in the event that Ashley may have to dip out a little bit. But Neff, we got a couple of questions in the chat. Would you mind facilitating those for us, please?
Absolutely. So Abram had, I think, one or two here. So I know you talked about your journey in the as you became an operator. You led with your heart, led with your mind. Talked about projects, taking in too many projects. So how has your personal development affected that? Like, what does personal development look like for you as an operator?
Totally changes based off of the year. It's been different every year I've been an operator. It's one of the things I'm not consistent in. It's something that it just depends on the season. So I think, there's a few things that have been consistent. So like mentorship has always been consistent in my life. Like I've needed sounding boards. Giovanna is one of those mentors in my life. I have a few others that that I can call and just say, hey, I'm struggling through this. I need to just bounce this off of somebody. So mentorship has been consistent. Some things that have been inconsistent is coaching, whether it be coaching, reading books, doing a series, doing something at church, like a mentorship thing with church. Like there's just been lots of different kind of things. Like right now, I would say the biggest way I'm personally developing my leadership is not even through Chick-fil-A. I'm on a board of directors at our church for personnel. So it's kind of like the HR board of directors at the church, but it's been really awesome to kind of just learn. And I mean, we're a pretty large church, and there's 8 of us on this board, and all different backgrounds. There's lawyers there's teachers, there's just all different backgrounds. And so that's been really cool to have different insight from different groups of people. And so I think it just totally changes in your season of what's kind of important at that season and what you can make time for. I mean, right now, reading books is not in my season. I feed a tiny human at 10 o'clock, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., so there's just different seasons of life. And so I think you've got to get it where you can on the personal development side.
For sure.
I think
people that go ahead, Alex.
No, go ahead, Neff, and I'll chime in after you. Go ahead.
I know we talked about growth, and you just mentioned mentorship, and I think it's super important for just leaders in the business to always seek out mentorship. It's always good to be able to just, like you said, talk to somebody, be able to be a sounding board, and be able to just get a different perspective from different people of our current situation. And so I think that's super important as leaders for us to be able to have somebody, either one or a couple people that we can go to. Alex?
Yeah, and I was just going to add to that. I think it's very important. You mentioned being on a board for an entity that's not Chick-fil-A. I think sometimes when you're working for Chick-fil-A can be all consuming. And so your perspective is only the Chick-fil-A lens, the Chick-fil-A perspective. But if you have the time, I'm not telling anybody to do this, but if you have the opportunity to go serve on the board for a different entity or serve in some type of volunteer leadership capacity, you'll get a different perspective that you can bring into the business. Because again, a lot of times you can get caught up in your own thoughts and your own way of doing things. But when you have that servantship in other areas, I tell you, it's helped my perspective a lot, in some of the things that I've had a chance to do outside of Chick-fil-A, just in terms of how I think about things, how other people are thinking about things, other businesses are thinking about things. And so I love that you introduced that thought to this, LaChelle.
I was going to say, LaChelle, too, just always have your eyes open for opportunities. I think that's something that I've done as well. How can I be part? I work with the schools and, work with a church and different opportunities, because I think that's the best way to grow, is to be involved in things that aren't Chick-fil-A. I think that's where you see the most growth, is when you have your eyes open, your heart open, network with people. There's plenty of places that you can, LinkedIn is one of them, Facebook, your church, schools. Be open to opportunities, and don't say yes to everything just because you can say yes. Look at what the opportunities are, and then say, okay, what are the things that are going to push me outside of my comfort zone a little bit, and take those opportunities. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's one of the phrases I use a lot, is just get comfortable being uncomfortable. Do things that maybe you're I don't know if I should do this, or I have the ability to do this, but get out there and do it. See how it goes.
That's right. So we have another question from Andrew. Andrew, thank you for joining our call today. He kind of asked around growth, which you just kind of answered, but he said, how do you avoid complacency as an operator? So could you speak a little bit into that?
Yeah, so one of the reasons that I wanted to become an operator was that my amount of work automatically impacted how much money I made. And I know that's a really random thing, but when you are hourly or salary, you can get to a place where you can work more and it doesn't change. You can bring in more money and it doesn't change how much you personally make. And so something to me that's helped avoid complacency is having a little bit of that drive of if I work more and am smarter and work smarter and can have a better FCR, then we can make more money. And I think a little bit that sounds a little selfish, but it's also not selfish, is that it's I want my leaders to make more money. I was at a $4.5 million store, and one of my leaders almost made $100,000 as a leader working for me. Like, that was awesome. I was like, he was so close. I was like, you're so close, buddy. You know, like, I want 3 of my leaders to make that. Like, and this is a guy that was from Guatemala and never thought he was going to have a chance to make any close to that type of money. And so I think that helps a lot with the complacency, is knowing that the amount of work that you can do and the smarts that you can have for your business can not only impact your own personal finances and goals and things like that, but it also can really change things for other people in their lives. I don't know if that answers your question, Andrew. If it doesn't, let me know. I'll follow it up, but yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I think that was a great answer, LaChelle. But I think also too, and please correct me if I'm wrong. This is not from an operator perspective, but this is just outside looking in. It's just, I think the culture of Chick-fil-A is, number one, the standards and expectations will help you not be complacent. I feel like, in terms of just how much, how many things Chick-fil-A, the support center, looks at and monitors, and how many reports they give in terms of comparisons, top 50% this, top 10% that. I think there's enough data out there. If you're an operator that's paying attention to it, or if you're a leader in an operator store that's paying attention to it, it kind of drives you a little bit. I don't know if y'all remember the old drive-through reports where it was just sales and transactions, and it didn't have those other variables. I think that was a talking point for everybody. They wanted to be number one or in the top 10 in that list. And so I think that side of the business, in terms of one, in terms of what the support center expectations are, and then two, I think internally, from outside looking in, the operators want to be able to take pride in what they do and the results that they generate in their restaurant. Because you guys gather a lot, you guys are in meetings a lot, and so it's a focal point to be able to have conversations about the business and what's going right. And so I think that's a push too. I know, at least for me in my position, in the way that I serve my operator, I know that drives me. The results that we're generating, are we still turning an increase? Are we able to grow here? Are we able to grow there? And I think me and my operator, we work together in terms of pushing the business to be able to do that, which in turns goes into what you're saying about the financial result. Like, if we're pushing those things, then the financial results should be a reflection of that.
Yeah. And I think maybe this is kind of one of those other questions, advice that you wish someone gave you. I'm kind of put that with something else of, I think sometimes people think of the operator opportunity and they think of the average, what you hear about the average store or the average freestander or the average income that operators make. Like, that's what people think about. What you don't think about is that when you first become an operator, the odds are is that you are in the lower 40% of that average. Like, you're in the lower, maybe even 30%. Like, that the people at the top 10 or top 20%, that's their third or fourth restaurant. Like, they've been operators for potentially 5+ years, and don't get me wrong, there are some that are for sure get in, first store, does great, crushes it. I have a friend who's like that. Like, there are some. So, but those are the exception, not the rule. Like, the rule, generally speaking, is you get in and you're in a lower volume store, you're in a lower volume mall, you're in the prove it kind of territory. And so even in those conversations, like, you're in these operators conversations and they're like, I did this many cars. And you're like, yeah, in 4 hours it took me to do that many cars. Like, it just kind of gives you a different perspective. And I think you've got to be careful with that, of that competition can be good, but I'm an extremely competitive person. I came from extremely high volume restaurants, and my restaurant is not high volume. And so you had to learn how to harness a different aspect of competitiveness that's not necessarily competition with other people, it's competition with yourself. And then it's the excellence aspect, is that, like, if you're driven by competition, you might get into a little nugget store and not be able to throw a bone against somebody else. Like, you might not be able to be competitive with them. But if you focus on excellence, there's like something out there about focusing on excellence versus success. It's that kind of a deal. I think I really had to learn that firsthand, of like, my store is not busting out the wazoo. We can go 20 minutes and not see a car in the drive-thru, but I've got to focus on excellence, and I've got to see what we can do with that.
No, and I think just to echo what you just said, I feel like Truett would speak on getting good at being small before getting bigger, and that's a biblical concept as well. And so I just think that what you're saying, newer operators or people who are getting stores for the first time, can you, similarly to LDP, can you be a good steward of this before you reach into these bigger buckets? So that's real good.
Yeah.
All right, and I think Alex, I'm gonna throw it back to you because I think that wraps up our time for Q&A. So you can wrap us up.
Yes, sir. So first of all, LaChelle, thank you so much for joining us today. Really, some really good information. For those of you who are joining, hopefully you got out of this what you thought you would have. I do believe that LaChelle has given us not the blueprint, but her journey and her roadmap on how she became successful and some of the challenges that she had. This episode will become available publicly in the next few weeks, maybe 4 to 5 weeks. And so be on the lookout for that. Where you listen to your podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Hey guys, what's up? It's your friend, Pastor John R. Adolph from the Antioch Church in Beaumont, Texas. And I just want to slip this in right quick so you'll never forget. It's all about progress over perfection here at TPE.
Tap into the Pivot Experience where we help young, hungry entrepreneurs move on to the next step.